All right, it's your boy Spank Dog, aka Puffinstein at YouTube. Like, comment, share, subscribe. You already know. Let's get into it. All right, so Stephen Miller um made some comments about the immigration from 1965. The amount of immigrants that came to the USA has tore the USA down. And the 76 million immigrants that came since 1965 were a detriment on the US. Now, that's not true. That's just blatantly not true. And I went to extra measures to check to make sure that I didn't come up here and say that this man is lying, misinformation status, and be wrong. So that whole 76 million immigrants. Yo, what's good, Barbara? God bless you. Yeah, you're the best, Barbara. I'm glad you rolled up. You know what I'm saying? hmm Yeah, I'll tell him definitely. My Brody. Shout out to you and your family. Shout out to everybody you got love for. You know. So, but let's get back to it. So, Stephen Miller, right? Um, he said the 76 million immigrants that came from 1965 hurt the US, and that's not true. The fact of the matter is the 76 million immigrants that came to the United States, and yo Barber, man, I'm telling you, man, I checked this out too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know the truth, and what's crazy is we're gonna pull up a video because we're gonna watch my man Makla, because this is my man that I mess with like that. You know what I'm saying? I always watch his video. I'm gonna pull it up ahead of time, a matter of fact. But yeah, this dude Stephen Miller's bugging out. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you just get up there and misinform people, Barbara? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you just go up there? How do you have such a powerful man not being more careful than regular people? You know, I used to hear that song, Everyday People by Arrested Development. I was more into the harder type rap, you know what I'm saying? Or just like, I guess a little more complicated even. If it wasn't hard, it had to be real super lyrical. And Arrested Development was simple, but now I think about Everyday People, the song Arrested Development made. And I'm like, that song is amazing, What happens is people forget we're everyday people, and we got to stick together, or the powerful or crap on us. You know what I'm saying? The man cave. Yeah, listen, man, that's the theme. So I'm glad you like the background. I've been working on the backgrounds. I did that on purpose. I used to run with a crew called DEB when I was younger. You see it right there. Spank Dog. It came out good. I got the video games. I grew up in a video arcade. My father was a number runner, but the store was also a candy store. And in the candy store, he had the video games. Hell yeah, I'm everyday people. Hell yeah. You know, yeah, my father definitely taught me that, I grew up in a video arcade slash candy store slash number spot, you know. And my pops, they love my father in the hood. You know what I'm saying? They really love my pops in the hood. That's not no exaggerating, no story boxing. My pops was really that dude. That's why me and G'd Up Quinn, that's why we are how we are. You know what I'm saying? My brother's a real dude. So anyway, back to Stephen Miller. I can't believe this guy. Like, my thing is, right? He says, right, that the biggest experiment that was a fail in American history was the 76 million immigrants brought over here since 1965, right? Well, I disagree. I believe the arrival of people after the Native American Indian lived here, the arrival of them, I think that is a worse time. They killed tens of millions of American Indians when they took over this country. You know, you talk about brought in because they did you know, because Stephen Miller wants to say brought in immigrants because it puts a negative connotation on it. So, you know, that's like saying they brought in the pilgrims. Because if you're going to say it about the immigrants that helped America flourish, you understand what I'm saying? Like people said, you know, ignorant people and people putting misinformation out there literally are saying that the immigrants that came since 1965 hurt the country. That's a lie. That's a lie. You know, I had thanks, Barbara. I read the comment right there. You know, I gotta highlight that one. But you know, it shouldn't even be like that. He's divisive. You know, he wants rich people and people who are poverty stricken to not get along. You know what I'm saying? Look, I'm gonna run the video. I want you guys to understand what's really shaking. You know what I'm saying? So let me get the video up real quick, and you're gonna understand exactly where I'm coming from. Let me share the screen. Yeah, man. Like the minute he said the single worst experiment in US history, the minute he said the single worst experiment in US history was the native was the immigration of the 76 million since 1965, I said that's not worse than the genocide of the American Indian, you know? And you know what it is? To call what happened to the American Indian an experiment is disgusting. That's why it kind of don't fit, you know, because he said experiment and he's referring to the fact that they brought in 76 million immigrants since 1965. So that, you know, I can understand him saying it's an experiment, but it wasn't a fail. And then to call the genocide of the American Indians an experiment is disgusting, so it don't fit. But I don't care. When he said the word, it sounded like he was saying the worst thing that happened to in America ever was when they brought the immigrants. And in my head, I said, how? I said the genocide of the American Indian is the most egregious, most disgusting, most horrible thing that's ever happened in America. I can't believe people say go back to your country in a country that's not even theirs. How does that go on? And you tell me I'm wrong. Like you can't look at me and say, "Oh, you're evil, you're bad, you're lying." No. This all facts. Any person with logic, you know I'm kicking facts, Barbara. You know what I'm saying? When I say that it was a genocide and the American Indians were done filthy, and not only that, they live in reservations where it's like you know, it's the one thing is that they govern themselves, but they're going through tough times like no other hood in the world. You know, the suicide rate, the drug use, it's through the roof. You know, where's the reparations? You know, not just for them, for black folks too. You know, I'm on it like that. I do believe not only, well, definitely the Native American Indian deserves reparations, but um African American folks deserve reparations too, in my opinion. Let's bring up the video. All right, it's up. Let me full screen it real quick. Let me see. Good looking. Let me highlight that comment right there. Barbara agrees. That's good enough for me. All right, so we're gonna play this. You know, Adam Mockler, right? I try to tell people I don't cover people unless I echo their sentiment. You know what I'm saying? So when you see me cover somebody like Adam Mockler, when you see me cover Minutes of Horror, when you see me cover Rick Strom, when you see me cover Dr. Rashad Ritchie, you know, that's what it is. Those are I echo their sentiment. I mess with all of them. I just named some of the greatest channels on YouTube. You know what we're gonna do? I'm gonna tell y'all people some of the channels that you could check out that I know people would watch and just have a ball. These are daily channels. This is where I'm trying. The way they are is the way where I'm trying to get my channel, and I'm gonna succeed. But Dr. Rashad Ritchie he's just a class act, bro. He spends so much time blowing up people that do like disgusting stuff. I love watching Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. He's down with TYT, and he stay getting people. Rick Strom too from TYT. Excellent show, TYT Sports. And even Anna, and I believe you pronounce his name Jenk. They're good people. People have a problem with Jenk. Some people. I don't get into that. I don't want to spend my time defending somebody. I want to spend my time pointing out the good things that the person does. And I've seen Jenk a million times say stuff that is great, that is positive. Oh yeah, I just noticed you wrote again. Let me highlight that. Yeah, man. Barbara, regarding what you just said, we should be showing them the utmost respect. They should be treated like superstars, the American Indian, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Like that's bad. Look, I'm gonna start the video real quick. Let me full screen it, make sure it's full screen. All right, people, let's get into it. I want you to understand what triggered me going live. I haven't went live in a while because I've gotten into editing my videos. So editing is safer because you don't have no chance to make a live mistake. But I need to go live again. There's no way in the world I shouldn't be live. So with that being said, let's get into the video. Big shout out to Adam Mockler. Salute. That's the young gun right there. I'm gonna start talking about the people I cover more because they're a big part of everything that's going wrong. I'm going right. This is part of the positivity.
Donald Trump's deputy chief of staff, Stephen Miller, is just vomiting vitriol live on Fox News about immigrant groups, about any non-white groups in America. And he's lying. He is confidently lying. It sounds right to the millions and millions of Fox News viewers that are watching, but until I deprogram and debunk these clips in just one moment, just understand that he is lying directly out of his mouth. Now,
Yes.
Stephen Miller has had quite an interesting 24 hours because this article describes how Katie Miller and Stephen Miller's excuse for free military housing has fallen apart in a damning police report. YouTube has been slowing down our growth, so double check to make sure that you are subscribed right below the Adam Mockler feed. Let's continue to beat MAGA media. This reads, the report flatly describes the terroristic threats that they claim they got as non-threatening drawings. Just listen. White House aide Stephen Miller's wife claims she and her husband bravely stared down an intimidation campaign that forced them to relocate their home.
Just know there's a chance they had people write that. Don't think that there's not a chance of that. I'm not saying they did because you got to be careful. Allegedly for entertainment purposes, all that. You know what I'm saying? But I don't even know if that was written by people that are really trying to scare them or are mad at them.
From their home due to terroristic messages. They landed taxpayer-subsidized military housing, normally reserved for military officers, after Katie Miller warned that protests outside their home had become a threat to their children. But a police report just released paints a very different picture. Here's the original Fox News.
The issue of freedom of speech. I make my living with free speech. And you can't say fire it in a crowded theater. You also can't make terroristic threats. This, to me, would clearly come under the guise of terroristic threats. Would you agree?
I think not only this is terroristic threats, I think this is doxing. I think there are quite a few criminal statutes that are violated in this case.
So the couple moves out. They post photos. Some of the
Oh man, you know I gotta be careful while I do my my lives and stuff. You know, you don't wanna play yourself and let them get you in a bad spot. But the Millers, how can I say this without sounding angry? You know, there's something else. Listen, Stephen Miller, right? Listen, man, we don't gotta like each other. People don't gotta like each other on this planet. Stephen Miller comes off to me like Voldemort from Harry Potter. When he talks, there's something eerie about him, in my opinion. Like that real, and like I said, too, it's speculation. People gotta remember, like I said, this is just contemplation. But I don't think he gives a shit too much about the poor. And that's just how I feel, and his wife just comes off really like not the brightest bulb in the pack, and she also looked like she has very negative qualities, you know what I'm saying? I'll leave it at that. I don't want to be slamming people like that. I want the news and the facts to speak for themselves.
The slogan said trans rights are human rights or whatnot. But then an Arlington County police report obtained by Zateo undermines Miller's characterization. In the official write-up of the complaint, the reporting officer wrote, quote, "The messages were non-threatening and alluded to political issues such as immigration, transgender rights, DEI, and white supremacy." This says Miller is preying on families. Yeah, Stephen Miller is hurting a lot of families. This is very true. Just listen to the way he speaks about immigrants live on Fox News. And again, understand this is all a complete lie. He begins to...
I seen something recently that explains that Donald Trump, he made it seem like he was getting rid of all the immigrants because that's what the people asked for. And he made it seem like now you got what you wanted, like it was good for the country. Now he's selling this immigration thing. It's almost coming off like it's too much. ICE, like people like that running around hurting people and stuff like that, to the point where you're violating citizens, people that are considered, even though they don't have an illegal status, a positive on America because they work. And you're going after these people so hard, and I'm wondering why. And I found a report saying that Trump has ties with the owner of prisons, and that all of this going on ties into somehow him benefiting. Now, like I said, I don't want to go too far. Like I said, you got to watch your mouth if you want to keep your channel. So, I always say allegedly, for entertainment purposes, whatever. But we're going to keep going with this. But there's more stuff.
To describe the most successful time period in American history and human history, and tries to say that immigrants made it unsuccessful. Just listen.
And so
immigrants helped. Since 1965, the 76 million immigrants that they brought in actually helped the country flourish. That's a fact.
You saw between 1965 and today was the single largest experiment on a society, on a civilization that had ever been conducted in human history.
Now, the minute he said that, even though the genocide of Native American Indians was not an experiment, you cannot call that's disgusting. But what I'm saying is, he made it seem like when they brought the 76 million immigrants since 1965, it was the worst thing that ever happened to America. On the contrary, it was positive. But I researched something when he said that, because the first thing that popped into my head was, how could you compare that, in a sense, like saying it's the worst thing ever, to the genocide of the Native American Indian? Now listen, before Europeans arrived, tens of millions of indigenous people lived across the Americas. After contact, especially following Columbus in 1492, disease, warfare, enslavement, and forced displacement caused an enormous population collapse. Scholars estimate roughly 56 million indigenous, just like you said, Barbara. Just like you said, Barbara. 56 million indigenous lives were lost across the hemisphere. 56 million lives. Okay? With many regions seeing 80 to 95% population declines. That's eradication. That's genocide if we've ever seen it. By 1900, native populations in what became the U.S. had dropped to just hundreds of thousands from many of millions, tens of millions, and maybe closing in on 100 million people. You know, that is far larger and more devastating than anything Stephen Miller was referring to with his post-1965 immigration rhetoric. Now, you heard it yourself, rhetoric. I'm going to play it again.
Not just the 76 million immigrants that were brought in, largely from the third world.
Real quick, I seen that comment from Barbara. Yo, yeah, the ICE workers are crazy, Barbara. Like, yo, I'm telling you, I got more stuff to come. Now that I've made the decision to go live, because you know what it is, Barbara? You see the edits come out good, but they take too long. Yo, you know what's crazy? People think AI did everything for me. No, it just make me work harder. When you have something that helps you, that don't mean you take off the rest of the hours. That means while they're knocking out whatever little work they can knock out for you, you go even harder. You know, I've never worked this hard in my life. This channel drains me. I fall asleep staring at my computer, like, you know, and I got love for what I do, so it's not hard regarding like the time passes by, not like that of a regular 9 to 5. But still, I'm tired from this all the time. I spend 12 hours a day on the computer. So, but anyway, the ICE workers, I got more stuff coming. I just found something else that I'm gonna do a commentary on, where they catch the ICE workers with no masks on, and the lady, she just happens to be like a person who believes in the Constitution like that, and all law enforcement are supposed to identify themselves. So she puts a camera up, and this is not, you know, I hate that it's about race sometimes, but, you know, just for description's sake, it's a white lady, and she pulls out their camera. And the crazy thing is that this is the most ironic shit, that the ICE guys that they catch, it's a melting pot. They find like 6 ICE workers hanging out. You got yourself a black guy, you got yourself a white guy, you got yourself a Spanish guy, you know, and there's like 3 different type of Caucasian races there. You know, I'm surprised that I didn't see an Indian man. You get what I'm saying? And a Chinese guy, you know, and that's crazy. Like to be creeps, to be snakes. The ethnicities, the nationalities would unite. Why don't we unite like the snakes? Because I'm telling you, the ICE group that the lady strolled up on, it was every nationality you could think of, you know.
Descendants too. So you see with a lot of these immigrant groups, not only is the first generation unsuccessful, again, Somalia is a clear example here. Not only is the first generation unsuccessful.
And me and Makla are telling you right now, both of us, I didn't even take Makla by his word. Usually, you know, I know Makla wouldn't go up here and say that what he's saying is a lie unless he knew for sure. But I still I double fact checked. I double fact checked this one. And what I found was that Makla was keeping it 100% real. That he's spewing lies, misinformation. You know how bad that is in the time that we're in, where they're trying to give money to the rich and take money from the poor. And this dude is playing games like that, just jumping on TV with all the power he has, all the influence. He's on the White House lawn. Just because you're on the White House lawn, people would listen to you. And you're lying. You're on the White House lawn lying.
successful. But you see persistent issues in every subsequent generation.
Dude, this guy is using insanely extreme rhetoric just on Fox News from the White House lawn. He says 76 million immigrants were brought in as an experiment on civilization. Okay, when you use loaded language like brought in, you're
I got you, Bob. I just seen the
implying
comment.
that some nefarious group brought them in. Like, who are you implying? The Democrats, the Jews? Stephen Miller's Jewish, so I don't know why he would imply there's some nefarious force bringing immigrants in when people usually think it's Jews. Secondly, when he says that 76 million immigrants were brought in as an experiment on the civilization, he is describing perhaps the most successful experiment on the U.S. that any civilization could have ever had.
Thank
Since
you.
1965, since
Thank
this
you.
Immigration and Nationality Act that he's talking about, we have seen the largest gain in
told you,
GDP
Barbara.
and productivity in American history.
That's the young
We have
gun
seen
right there.
lifespan increase. We have seen innovations in
That's
technology,
Adam the
medicine,
kid.
science. Think about all of the innovations we've made since 1965. And of course, the country and the economy is not perfect. There's a lot of problem with wealth disparities. But the point that I'm making is we have seen huge leaps due to immigration, due to immigrants making this country better and them being skilled, smart, productive, wanting to work towards a better America. Stephen Miller is someone who does not want to work towards a better America. Like, it's just so intuitive. 100 years ago, the lifespan was way different. We want better technology. We want better.
In my opinion, Stephen Miller don't care about the everyday people. I'm pretty certain of that, you know. But like I said, I could only speculate to a certain degree. But from what you can determine where a person's coming from what they say, their body language, their facial expressions, all that. And let me tell you something. You know, I was taken out of a regular school and put in a gifted program. So they took me out of 309 on Madison and Ralph Avenue in Bedford-Stuyvesant, and they put me in 308 on Lewis Avenue, you know, and it was because I had taken a test and I did so amazing on the test that they said you can't be in regular classes, and they put me in something called the magnet program. Now people know about the magnet program, so you know, don't let looks fool you. Don't let you know, this is a cultural thing for me, you know. So like, don't let the fact that I'm not scared to let my true self hang out, you know, fool you into thinking that I'm not highly intelligent. You know what I'm saying? And I don't like to pat myself on the back. I just don't want you guys thinking that I'm trying to tackle something that I can't tackle. You know, trust me. You know, you gotta understand, man. You see people play sports. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. Genius is genius. When you see a guy like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, you know, the world is just learning about SGA from Oklahoma City Thunder. He's the kid that won the championship last year, along with Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, and the rest of the OKC Thunder. Casey Wallace won it with them. The other Jalen Williams, they actually have two Jalen Williams on their teams. One spelled Jaylin, and the other one spelled Jalen. But Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is a genius. And he's a basketball genius. But it don't matter. He is the Jordan of basketball right now. As far as like running through the playoffs, because Jokic and Giannis Antetokounmpo put up numbers a little higher than him. But Shea is that genius right now. You know, he's the best I've seen since Stephen Curry and LeBron James dominance.
Medicine and immigration leads directly to those things.
So you see consistent high rates of welfare use, consistent high rates of criminal activity, consistent failures to assimilate. But this shouldn't be a surprise, Will.
Okay, wait. No. It's not surprising because it's not true. He implies that this failure to assimilate leads to higher crime among immigrants, but immigrants commit crimes at lower rates than native-born citizens. Every single...
I highlighted the comment that said you're nicer with a computer than I am. Yeah, yo, Barbara, I'm telling you, like you know, I've been dealing with the technology since it landed. But luckily I had a friend that was a Catherine Gibbs graduate, and he let me pick at his brain to learn stuff about computers and technology. And then, I ended up on probation. You know what I'm saying? It's not something I'm proud of, but I got 3 years probation. And while I was on probation, I went to computer school. It helps. Like what I know helps a lot. The editing, I got really good at it. So, but thank you though. Thanks for the shout out. Let's get back to the story.
Study that has studied this shows that immigrants come here and they commit property crimes, drug crimes, violent crimes at like 2 times lower rates than people who were born here.
You hear that?
Here's what nobody's telling you about the new bearskin hoodie. This fleece is thick.
The
It's made from
bearskin
340
hoodie.
GSM of
I need
bearskin
one of
fleece,
those.
which is super warm, wind blocking, and regulates body.
It's just common sense. If Somalians cannot make Somalia successful, why would we think that the track record would be any different in the United States?
I believe in freedom of speech, but this dude is lying. It's like I want to skip him because he's not telling the truth, literally. But like, I don't want people. I got no hate in my blood. I want whatever he is. I want to be the polar opposite.
Both third world country by third world country. No one's saying, look, there are people all over the world that are great people. But you look at the society. If Libya keeps failing, if the Central African Republic keeps...
Listen, America's the greatest state financially, the greatest country or whatever. It's the biggest melting pot in the world. No other country in the world has that many races, has let that many people in. And we are amazing. You understand what I'm telling you? Just that alone, look, everybody knows that America is a flourishing country for decades, for centuries. We're the melting pot of the world. It's not a coincidence. Not only that, the people that want to come here probably the most are the most ambitious, the most smart. Yeah, people come in that are wild. You know what I'm saying? But that's, the ratio. Of course, people are gonna slip in, but don't act like the immigrants messed up America. They built America.
Failing. If Somalia keeps failing, right? If these societies all over the world continue to fail, you have to ask yourself, if you bring those societies into our country...
No. We're bringing people... Okay, wait, no. Nobody's bringing people into our country. People are coming into our country to integrate and make our country successful. When he asks if Somalians can't make Somalia successful, why would they succeed here? Because, dude, this is the United States. Our government, our structure, the incentives, the Constitution, it's not Somalia's, it's ours. He's showing like a fundamental lack of faith in our society, in the US Constitution, when he thinks that we can't support a multitude of people, a diverse amount of people. Like the United States was built on diversity, on a diverse amount of people being here. Here's the problem with the Stephen Miller rant. If I weren't here to debunk this Stephen Miller rant, for example, like if this were just playing on Fox News, as it was 20 minutes ago, this literally happened 20 minutes ago, and you were sitting there kind of half listening while reading the paper or doing...
Shout out to SGA, you know what I'm saying? That's the team he plays for, OKC. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, the champion of the league. But you got to shout out his second option and his third option, Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams.
Doing your work. What he's saying might sound intuitive to the average American. Obviously, I stepped in and I debunked it. I said, listen, what he's saying is wrong for this, and this reason. But imagine how many millions of Americans' brains are being rotted by him lying. In this next clip, he just confidently lies. He's just making stuff up.
The Republicans, the conservatives, the far right, especially, I know there's good Republicans, but my thing is that this guy talks about being high and mighty, being holier than thou, not messing up, no crime, right? And then he's up here spitting out misinformation like there's no tomorrow. How does that go together? You just talk like you was supposed to be on some pedestal, like you're special, and you're up here doing something that's teetering on criminal, misinformation. I don't know if there's a punishment for that, but he's lying. He said this is the fact, blah, blah, blah. Me and Adam Mockler both fact checked it. and he's lying, literally. You know, I care about my channel. I wouldn't go up on my channel and say that a man of that status is lying unless I was certain he was lying.
In a confident tone. Like when I say he confidently lies, I mean he's saying this as if it's
Confidently
true.
lies.
Everything he says in this clip is a complete lie.
And we mask the impact of immigration in every public policy issue we discuss. We talk about test scores. Well, if you subtract immigration out of test scores, all of a sudden our test scores skyrocket.
False.
If you subtract immigration out of healthcare, all of a sudden we don't have nearly the size of the healthcare challenges our country faces. If you subtract immigration out of public safety, all of a sudden we don't have violent crime in so many of our cities.
Okay, so
Issue after issue.
this is number one, Nazi-esque rhetoric. Back in World War II, they would say that the Jews are the reason why the hospitals are full, the schools aren't working, why healthcare is expensive, why inflation is there. They would use one group as a scapegoat. But even beyond that, even beyond the comparisons, I'll engage with the merit of his arguments. At this point, he's not even anti-immigration. He's just anti-people. He lies about immigrants' test scores being lower when that's not true. That's not borne out anywhere. But then he claims that immigrants are the ones causing our hospitals to be full. Immigrants are the ones causing schools to be full. By his logic, if we removed 1 million Americans from the country, if we just removed 1 million citizens, that would also fix the problem as much as it does removing 1 million illegal immigrants. So it's really weird to just say that we need less people in the country when the reason why the prices of housing skyrocketing, the reason why prices are skyrocketing for certain vegetables is because we're deporting people who help produce these goods. The people who are building the houses are being deported. That's not me being crass or stereotyping. Those are just the facts of how jobs in America work. And Stephen Miller is ignoring that.
If you want next year, 2026, to potentially finally see some financial improvement to your situation,
We talk about challenges.
Listen, man, let me listen to some other research I just did, right? For just North America, right? Estimates range widely, but sources suggest millions of native people, with figures like 5 to 10 million, were here before Europeans settled. So before Europeans even got to America, there were 5 to 10 million Native American Indian people in America, right? Now, what happened after they arrived, the Europeans, it was called the Great Dying. It was the massive decline in population. For people, see, like, this is the thing, right? People will say, why are you bringing up the American Indian? Because it applies to this, everything that's going on right now. This is a man that has the nerve to act like he has some say-so in who belongs in the country and who doesn't. And he don't belong in the country if you go by the truth. The truth is that there were people here before you, 5 to 10 million. And then they were slaughtered, and then now you say this is your country and that other people need to get out. You were the when it comes to getting out, your people were the first people that needed to get out. Let's be honest. You got to be honest. Tell the truth.
Our country faces. If you subtract immigration out of public safety.
Let me check the comments real quick. Yeah, and you hit it right on the head too, Barbara, before when you said the indigenous people.
All of a sudden, we don't have violent crime in so many of our cities.
I just can't believe the goal for Stephen Miller to go issue by issue and say they're all related to immigration. I mean, I'm not surprised at this point, but watch this clip.
Television as it is right now, I'm working on that. But this will be quickly my last question for you. What can we do, Stephen? You know, this was something America addressed in the 1920s. They had these debates. They had these conversations openly. And they chose in the 1920s to say, we are going to put strict quotas on people coming from different parts of the world. 65 did away with what we did in the 20s. So do we need something like the 1924 Act?
I don't believe Fox News just lets them rock out like this, too. Like, that's wild that a news station literally lets them get up there and do that. And my question is, like, what Stephen Miller is saying is it's beyond challenged by research. It would paint it false. And I'm pretty sure Fox News knows that what he said wasn't correct. Yet you've not heard anything about what Stephen Miller said was not right.
Clearly, we need to have in this country exactly what President Trump called for, which is that we need a moratorium on immigration from third world countries until we can heal ourselves as a nation, solve our education issues, solve our healthcare issues, our public safety issues, our assimilation issues, our cultural issues. So the 1924 Act is such a good example because we had large-scale immigration from Europe from 1880 to 1920. So in other words, we went from a country that had immigration from part of Europe.
We really desperately need a Democrat with a strong, assertive, clear message on immigration. It feels like during the Biden era, he didn't come out with a lot of clarity on his immigration stance. I mean, here and there, they would talk about immigration, but his lack of clarity on immigration allowed Trump to then dominate this far-right vacuum. It's a bad thing when Stephen Miller is able to have a stronger narrative on immigration than any Democrat. Like, I know Stephen Miller's narrative on immigration. I'm not sure what Gavin Newsom fully believes on immigration. And that's not a knock against him. It's a knock against Democrats as a whole who need to be out there asserting our proactive positions that are pro-immigration, but pro-safe immigration. Everybody should be in favor of legal, streamlined, safe immigration that doesn't take 7 to 10 years. That should be safe and quick and clean and allow people to move here for a better life. We know everybody who's here. Illegal immigration isn't something that is good. It's inherently bad, but people are forced to do it. When Stephen Miller says that we need to heal the United States with an immigration moratorium, that would genuinely collapse the healthcare industry. 1 in 5 to 1 in 6 people that work in the healthcare industry are immigrants. I'll just take something that hits close to home. I grew up in Northwest Indiana, and my dad, his dad, their side of the family, they're Muslim, right? My mom is not Muslim, but my dad and his side of the family, they are. So when I was a kid, I used to go to Friday prayer at the mosque. Every single Friday, everyone comes. And legitimately, a large portion of the Muslims that were there that immigrated from Syria were heart doctors, were surgeons, were lawyers. Some people owned their own businesses. A lot of people were dentists. I mean, we always got these good deals because I'd grow up and I'd go to the local Muslim dentist or local Muslim heart surgeon, and I'd know the guy. I would grown up and I knew the guy my entire life. I mean, it's just, well, what I'm saying here is that immigration benefits this country. It doesn't hurt healthcare. It doesn't hurt schooling. It helps as long as we're doing it in a safe way. I'm just going to leave.
All right, I'm gonna stop it there. Big shout out to Adam Mockler. That's my dude right there. You know what I'm saying? Go check him out. So, but what I was gonna say, there's certain videos that, see, like, I've been editing a lot lately, so I want the videos to come out nice for you guys, but it's to the point where there's so many things I want to talk about. There's not enough time for me by myself to edit all these videos and still get everything to you through editing. So live has to fall into the mix. And for those videos that I can't edit, I'm gonna start going live. You know what I'm saying? Stop in whenever you want. You're gonna see me pop out more. I'm gonna try to figure out a time slot that I could dedicate myself to so people know when I'm gonna be going live. You know, it took a while. I've been doing this for a while. So now, you know, I'm starting to understand certain things more. If you stop by and you watch like Barbara did, man, much love to anybody that stopped in. Yo, Barbara, you already know what it is, man. You the best. You know, thank you. Yo, I'm out of here, man. Definitely think about what was said in this live. All right, it's your boy Spank Dog. I'm out of here. Much love, real love.